Everybody, this is Chris just coming at you, just to give you a little bit of a bumper just ahead of things. This episode is about the band Ween. There is a point where we mentioned Vince McMahon and that we were going to talk about him and that we are going to talk about the scandal and everything that went on over the last couple of days. We ended up talking about things so extensively between today, Friday, and yesterday, Thursday, when we recorded, because of all the information that came out at such a rapid pace, that we ended up giving it its very own episode. So that is episode 58, the bonus episode, the Vince McMahon's WWE Scandal Mania 2022, which you could also find that next. That should be next on your queue if you want to hear that. I do apologize for the audio quality in this and the following episode, and as of late, it has not been what I would like it to be. But I am going to be fixing that within the next couple of weeks. I'll be getting a new microphone and just trying to figure out what the heck the problem is on my end. And we hope to have a better show for you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much, and just remember, question everything. Hope you enjoy the show.
Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And today we are joined by our main guy behind the scenes who writes all of our articles, including the music that we are going to discuss today in a holy union of sorts. Our man Tony the Chosen, Tony Cannoli, whatever you want to call him. He is here for your He's here for your listening pleasure, and he's here to talk about a wonderful, wild, wacky band that he wrote about some months ago and has actually seen in person, live and in color. We're talking about Ween, of course, the crazy concoction created by a jock and a guy into artsy music and their love over Prince. That turned into this whole wacky thing, and they're actually, their big thing this year is they're playing the South Park 25th anniversary concert with Primus. I'm probably not going, sadly, because it's probably sold out already, and I don't even.
Where is it going to be?
Tickets. I have no idea. I don't even know where to get tickets. I imagine it's in I think it's in Colorado, but
yeah, I would say it's that or in Hollywood or some shit.
Yeah, something like that.
It's in Colorado, I believe.
Oh,
and Ween, I'm most likely not going either because that's a little bit of a hike. Even if Primus is a band I still need to see and I've always wanted to see, and seeing Ween a second time would still be amazing. I bet
I'd like to see Ween a lot. I actually had never listened to them until you had done that article, and now I can't get enough of these guys. Well, that's not true. I heard them on SpongeBob, but I didn't know that it was them. So I guess that doesn't really count. And I guess I've probably seen Beavis and Butthead when they made fun of them, but I really, again, doesn't really count. I've heard them in passing, but I had never really gotten into them. And I really like their music. It's a lot of fun. The closest show by me is December 10th and 11th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which I don't think I'll be able to make this year. If they do a New York, New Jersey date at some point, I'm going to try my hardest to go to that, just as long as it's not in Long Island, because I just don't like those people.
It'd probably be one of those B markets like that, or friggin' what's that? Sands Bethlehem. Those weird
probably.
B markets for the tri-state area.
Yeah, or a good old Scranton.
Yeah.
With the Office store in the mall.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tony, why don't you tell the good people a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name's Tony. I'm a writer for you guys. Mostly heavy metal and horror movie focused. So I haven't done a metal article for this site yet. I did plenty for your old site, the bone saw.
Oh yeah,
back in those days.
Yeah, that was fun.
But yeah, that was. But yeah, I wrote that review of a Ween concert because so far that's probably the only band I've seen recently that kind of fits the mold of Why Do We Exist. Mainly because most of what I've seen are, various heavy metal projects and not doing anything too crazy on stage. Great musicians, great music, but I guess we kind of know why they exist. They just play the genre that they are. They play the genre that they're known for. And recently I saw the Who, which wouldn't fit the website whatsoever.
Oh, that's cool. I always wanted to see the Who. I think they're one of my favorite classic rock bands. My favorite classic rock band is Queen by far. But I liked the Who a lot for a time. I had a history teacher in high school who, he was a cool guy, Mr. Sturm. He grew up in the same area as Anthrax, and he actually went to party. He used to party with them. Actually,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he lived up the street from Scotty, and he showed me some pictures to prove it too. Nice guy, Mr. Sturm. But he was the biggest Who fan I had ever seen in my life. He had I remember there was one time where we were just chatting about weekends and stuff, and I was like, what'd you do, man? And he was like, oh, I saw the Who again. And I was like, oh, that's great. He's like, yeah, I saw them Friday night in Pennsylvania. I saw them Saturday night in Buffalo, and I saw them Sunday night in New Jersey, and then here I am today. I'm like, wait, you saw them every night this weekend?
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
I'm like, dude, how many times have you seen the Who? This is about 10 years ago now. So at the time, he had seen them 76 times.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was
holy shit.
I was like, is this why you became a teacher? He's like, well, not exactly, but I did tour, but I have seen them for entire summers.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, you must be killing it financially because certainly making a good living off of you. There's probably some group of Who dedicated people that he just hangs out with and goes on the tours with, because I don't imagine that after going all these years that he wouldn't have made a bunch of friends everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know I have probably a couple of bands that I've seen in double digits, but 76 times you said, that is insane. That's so many.
Yeah.
Keep in mind again, this was 10 years ago, so I'm sure.
It's probably 200.
Yeah, I'm sure he surpassed 100 by now.
Yeah.
The 200s.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most I've seen a band, or at least big name band, is Goat Horror, which I've seen 6 times, maybe 7, but that's also the credit of the fact that Goat Horror used to play on every single metal bill for several years in the 2010s.
Yeah,
that's me with. Oh, you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's probably what you're going to say, but I think I've seen Goat Horror 1 time on purpose and 4 times by accident, but I enjoy them every time.
I was going to say the same except for Overkill, because Overkill plays every big metal show in the tri-state area, so if you want to go see, you'll end up seeing Overkill because they're just there on the tour.
Pretty much. I
mean, I've seen Overkill 3 times.
I've seen them probably at least 7 times.
Yeah.
Just from going to shows to see other bands, and Overkill just happened to be there.
Yeah, I can count at least 7 times of seeing Overkill.
Yeah.
You guys are a little more towards Jersey, which.
Yeah, they play Starland Ballroom literally all the time. Anytime they're in New Jersey, they play Starland Ballroom.
Yeah,
and they're from New Jersey, so.
Yeah, 2 of the 3 times I've seen them were at Starland. I'm from the Hudson Valley area of New York. They actually came to this area to the Chance of Poughkeepsie not too long ago. That was my 3rd time, but yeah, I noticed that they're almost like the house band there, because whenever I see them at Starland, you see Overkill parking on the sign.
Yeah.
And then Eddie Trunk always introduces them.
Yeah.
So, and they always have 15 bands opening for them when they play there too.
Oh, yeah,
so it's
they're always, that's why it's always a great show, because there's at least probably 3 bands on the bill that you'll want to see, at least, of all the bands they bring. So it's that's why I've seen them so many times. So I've wanted to see these other bands. They played with Forbidden once there.
Oh yeah, I was at that one.
Was it 2010? Because I was at that show.
Yeah, I think it was. It might. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Forbidden and Bonded by Blood, Gamma Bomb. Was the only
Gamma Bomb and Evil. I was there.
Yeah, that was great.
And that was packed. Like, I've never seen Starland that packed. Like, there was, like, no pit because of how many people were there. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was packed, and the entire crowd was singing the lyrics to every Overkill song.
Oh, yeah, that was such a great show.
Yeah, that was actually
but
the only time
I think, it seems like in New Jersey, Overkill is treated like their Black Sabbath or like Iron Maiden, pretty much.
Oh yeah, well, they're like the hometown heroes. So
yeah, they're royalty.
Yeah,
but especially Starland.
Second time I caught him at Starland, like you wouldn't even think this is an Overkill opening lineup. It was cool though. It was all good bands, but it's like it was like weird mismatch. It was Overkill, Amorphous Nile, and Swallow the Sun.
That is weird.
Interesting,
but. Whenever Overkill comes, you can always be guaranteed that just about every band will be good.
Yeah.
So that's always a plus. I mean, I've also seen Exodus a similar number of times because there was there was a period in I want to say from 2018 to no, not 2018, from 2007 through 2012 where they toured with every single band. So I saw Exodus 4 times in the same year or something like that. I think I've seen Exodus at least 7 times.
Yeah, there was a period in the early 2010s that if it was a metal bill and it wasn't Metallica, but it was anywhere below Metallica. So Megadeth, the next, if you go one step down from Metallica, right? It was always either Exodus or Testament or both on the bill. So a Slayer tour would be Exodus, Testament, and Slayer, or Megadeth, Testament, and Slayer. Or
I remember that. I only ever caught Exodus twice, but I remember seeing them listed on a bunch of bills. But when I saw them twice, it was the same summer in 2015, which would be around the time period.
Yeah.
So I remember I caught them opening for Testament here. They came with Testament here at the Chance, which was a great show. Testament played the first 2 albums in their entirety.
That's awesome.
Then later that year, I went to see King Diamond do the entire Abigail album in New York City, and Exodus opened up for them.
Yeah, that was an amazing
great.
show.
I loved that show.
It was amazing. King Diamond, I was so blown away. He was so good.
I think that's my favorite person that I've seen. I don't know if that was my favorite concert. It's definitely up there. But I think but he's my favorite person that I've gotten to see.
Yeah, he's pretty far.
He might be my number 1 concert still. But speaking of people who are dedicated to seeing the same bands over and over again, like Overkill and The Who, when I was at that Ween show, they played 3 nights in a row. We were only able to make it the last night because we couldn't afford tickets for all 3, and I can't exactly take every day imaginable off. There were people there who not only saw them the 2 days before, but they were talking to us saying that they catch them every chance they get. They'll catch them 3-4 times a year. They'll catch them every time they come within a certain radius to where they live. And they say that Ween, every time you see them, it's different. They'll play because they have so many albums, so many songs, and they're not really a band that's had radio hits where they have the songs that they have to play. I mean, I know everyone knows Ocean Man from SpongeBob, but like you said, I was in the same boat. I saw the SpongeBob movie as a kid when it came out. I heard the song. I just glanced over it. But yeah, other than Ocean Man, which they actually didn't play that night, and a few others like the song that was in Beavis and Butthead, Pulling Little Daisies, they don't really have a greatest hits, but they have such a devoted fan base that anything they play is going to please the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. So
they even pulled out a song from an early demo that I think the only way it was officially released was an online only compilation called Creators of the Sack. The song is called Sucking Out the Blood on the Devil's Dick. And then you saw the crowd screaming along to that song. So even songs like that, the diehard Ween fans were familiar with.
Wow. So what was the audience like when you got to see them? Did they dress up funny, or was it just pretty?
Bit of a mixture. Basically, the show is very surreal, even without the music. like there were these people. They were like different kinds of people. People just wearing Ween shirts, or people that just looking at everyday folks. But then you got stuff like people dressing funny. For example, the biggest example was this couple that's not too far from us. The boyfriend was dressed in a poncho and wore a sombrero. His girlfriend had like a bow in her hair, like if she was a present. And they were blowing up balloons and knocking them into the audience and trying to dance with everybody.
I thought you said the girl had like boner hair for a second. I was like,
oh no, I said bow in her hair.
Okay, no, I was like, did they do it with hair gel? Did they like blow something up and put a contraption on her? Like what? Did anybody cosplay as the Boognish, or was there like a Boognish like thing being thrown around?
There was a Boognish behind them, and I bought Boognish air fresheners too. Which actually smell pretty nice. Smell like a banana. Also on stage they had they had a signer, which I know like some like bigger artists do sometimes, but they had like a signer doing sign language. It was a woman at times, a guy at times, depending on which song it was. But when they're doing signing to Ween's lyrics, it's adds a bit of hilarity and realism to it. I mean, remember they played a song called "Sucking the Blood Out the Devil's Dick."
Oh my god, I would love to see the sign of that.
Yeah, and biggest surprise. Just speaking of South Park, was biggest surprise of the set was again, this is another time where I heard them in passing, didn't pay attention. There was that episode of South Park Chef Aid where they were special guests. And they made up a song for it called "The Homo Rainbow," and they actually played it that night.
That's great. Like, it's cool that they dig into just at like random tracks that nobody's expecting. It sounds really cool. Did they like? I lost my train of thought on this now. Rats. Okay.
Yeah, probably the only like possible. Let's say the only song that night they played that was like you might have heard it somewhere song besides "Homo Rainbow," but that's not an actual recorded song, so you can't really count that. The only you've probably heard it song they played that night was "Pushing the Little Daisies," which was my introduction to Ween when I first heard that track. Because there's the story, because we all the stories of girlfriends not liking your music. But at the time, I was dating a girl who she did like heavy metal, though she was kind of biased to the old school stuff, as well as like the stoner, sludge, and doom stuff, because it sounds like like old Black Sabbath. And she did, if anything was too weird, too experimental, too out there, she thought it was like literal garbage that people pretend to like. We both like this band Moist Boys, which features Dean Ween, but it's more like punk rock / stoner rock. It still has wacky lyrics. Like there's a song called "The Tweaker" where there's a line about a girlfriend foaming at the mouth while he's jerking off and other weird shit.
Is she
or like my name's not Bugs Bunny, but I can win a fight, I think is one of the lyrics to that song. Okay. The lyrics are definitely written. If you look at the lyrics, definitely written by a Ween guy, but you ignore them, it just sounds like punk rock, like stoner rock. Like, so that's a side project, Moist Boys. She liked them, and we mentioned that they're a side project of the band Ween. Then she showed me the clip that was on Beavis and Butthead of "Push the Little Daisies" to show me how much they quote unquote suck. And I hear this, I'm like, you know what, this is actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
But what got me really, really into them, at that point, I was like, okay, I knew that song, I knew some others. What really got me into them, very quick, was just is my good friend Doug, who I ended up going to the show with. That when I went there, and he's probably the biggest Ween fan I know in person. He got into him. I'd go in the car. He got into him. I'd hang out. We'd be in his car or whatever. He'd have him on various albums, usually the Mollusk, because that's most people's gateway. Like when people start actually listening to albums in full by them, because that seems like their opus. After hearing just the variety. After hearing all these Ween tracks, hearing how wacky and out there they are, and hearing just the variety in their sounds, how a Ween album can go from one genre to another, but still have the same feel and have that same wackiness. That made me more curious about them. Started looking up more stuff, started listening to their old albums or later albums. And yeah, that's what got me hooked. And then eventually, we ended up, it took a couple of years, or maybe just 2 years. Then we tried to see them 1 year, and they were playing either Terminal 5 or one of those like New York City theaters. But that sold out. But then 2021, we finally got the chance to. But yeah, like they would, and it's not, even early on, where most bands early on, they're just a straight up genre band. They just have one genre that they stick with, and then maybe they get more experimental later. Ween's like very first album, it is more like consistent with like straight up punk rock songs. Like the first track is which they played that night, "You Fucked Up," which is just him screaming and cursing. It sounds like angry punk. Then a song about I think ticks in the guy's head. I don't really remember it too well, but the first couple songs or so, it sounds like it's going to be a straight up punk record. Then it comes to this like 50s sounding love ballad where the singer sounds like Hartman. Oh, I love you. So even back then, even when they kind of fit more into a genre, they were still experimenting.
I like that they keep doing that because it keeps the music fresh, and it isn't just that they're just writing music to write it. It's they're legitimately trying to do something different each time, but they're like not forcing it. They're just everything.
Yeah, and they have a consistent feel. Yeah, and it's the wackiness, and also the fact that like a lot of their ideas is something that you think there's mostly stuff that only Ween would come up with. Like there's few bands where I can like for example, when you're looking up a track listing or you're trying to remember like which songs are by them, it's like, oh, Dr. Rock, that's the song that sounds like Fucked Up Thin Lizzy. Or also they have these like random Prince sounding songs like Chocolate and Cheese. But again, like still with the wacky lyrics and just the wacky feel. So like even when they do stuff that's more standard, there's still that Ween feel there.
Yeah, I would. A lot of people have made this comparison, and the band apparently hates this, but they are very much similar to Frank Zappa in that regard. That they have all these different sounds and bring it all these different genres together and like play all these different genres.
Why do they hate that?
Have the wacky. Apparently, they were not fans of Frank Zappa. They weren't like influenced by him as much. Like they like the Mothers of Invention, but not his solo stuff. Apparently.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I read that earlier.
I didn't know about them liking Mothers, but not liking his solo. But I've heard that they weren't fans of Zappa, and I heard like one of the reasons why they hate the comparison is they thought Zappa was just doing parodies.
Yes,
and that as wacky and comical and weird as Ween's music is, I guess, they still see themselves like as serious musicians.
Yeah.
I will say though, if they say they weren't influenced by Captain Beefheart, then it's a load of shit because they have, especially songs like I Got a Weasel. They have songs where it blatantly sounds like it could be a Captain Beefheart song.
Oh yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that, man. We'll get right back to it in a second. I just want to run my quick spiel that I do every show. I kind of like the flow of this actually, so maybe we can adopt this format for the future. Just like we'll talk a little bit about the thing first, and then we'll just run the spiel and then go right back. It might help people a little bit more just into what they wanted to do. But we are, in case you've been living under a rock for the last year and a half, we are Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that speaks and talks and preaches about the very weirdest in pop culture. And what we like to do is we talk about anything weird in pop culture, such as music like we're doing now, or a strange movie like UHF with Weird Al, which we did a couple of months ago, or a strange video game series like Bomberman or Spyro, which we will be doing in the future, or just simply weird stuff like wacky Disney rides or amusement park rides like we just did last week. Anything, you name it, we might cover it at some point in time. There are a few ways that you can listen and that you can support this show other than just listening to it, which we appreciate you for doing all of that, especially now that we're on our new home Spreaker. for about 6 months. We're getting settled into Spreaker. They've been very good to us. We're actually making some money off of this, which is really good. And we appreciate you. Are growing tremendously each month. And we want to keep that momentum going so you can keep on listening to us over wherever you get your podcasts, like Spreaker or Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Just keep listening to us, keep telling your friends, and if you would so kindly do something for us, you could leave us a really nice review and say that we're very nice boys and that we deserve a pat on the back and that we're doing a very good stand-up job and everybody loves us and we're really brilliant, and that way more people can discover us and listen to us and we can get more money. Or if you want to be a mensch, you can give us some real dinero by heading on over to Patreon. That's patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. For as little as $1, you can get access to our Discord server and you can talk trash and tell us that you hate our guts and that we need and that you're going to hold our families for ransom. Hopefully you won't actually do that. But by giving us something as little as $1, you can say whatever you want to do. You can even say that we're nice and you'll have access to our calendar and you'll know exactly what shows we've got coming in the pipeline. Maybe we'll even be able to give you some early access to some episodes. We don't really know. The sky's the limit. We'll see what happens. But you can also give us, there's several tiers of prizes that you just go right ahead, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/whydoesthisexist, and give us your money if you want to do that. If you want to let us know how we're doing and give us some direct feedback, you can head on over to YouTube. Just find the channel, Why Does This Exist, with a question mark. And we appreciate it if you would like and subscribe and comment to all of our videos or just some of our videos, whatever you want to do. Let us know how we're doing. Try to help us how we can. And if you want to leave us some feedback and if you want to even discuss it, I'll take out some time out of my busy day just to hear the feedback so that I can tweak this podcast, we can tweak the show and make sure that it's as good as it will ever be and more. So we would really appreciate all of that. You can also find us on social media. We are on the Twitter machine, although we rarely use it because there's just a lot of crazy people on there and we don't really need to deal with that kind of stuff. That's twitter.com/WDTEpod. Or you can like us on Facebook. It's a lot more tame over there. That's facebook.com/whydoesthisexistpod. And you can also email us if you want to just give us some feedback or just give us a tip or anything like that in private at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. And that would also help us out a ton too. And if you want to read some of Tony's stuff, you can find all of our episodes and his content at whydoesthisexistpod.com, including our stuff on Ween, which has brought us to this dance. That's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues, so let's get on with the goddamn show. More on Ween. Take it away, Tony.
All right, and I also add one thing. If you like my articles, especially the series I mostly do on here called Tony's Under the Radar, where I spotlight lesser-known horror films, so the next one's going to be on Japanese comedies.
Very nice.
Check out the Joe Bob Briggs Discord server full of friendly people, and me, one of the consistent watch party hosts who host Tony's Under the Radar, usually on Tuesday nights. The next one being the 28th of this month, where I'll be hosting the films Autopsy and the Haunting of Morella, both on YouTube and both full of boobs.
Always good.
All right, so any other questions about Ween?
How did they form? Tell us the story. What happened? How is? We know the words. We know the name Ween comes from a combination of the words wuss and penis. But how did these two nice young boys meet? What happened? How did Dean Ween and Jane Ween become? How did these two wieners get together?
Well, we all know. Well, Gene, whose actual name was, let me just Damn, I always forget.
Mickey Melchiano is
Mickey is Dean.
That is
and
Dean.
The other one is
Dean. Yeah.
Gene is Aaron Freeman.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Aaron Freeman. But yeah, basically they went to school together. They originally didn't like each other because one was a total artsy nerd, the other was a jock. But they started becoming friends when they found out they had a mutual love for Prince, and they started writing songs together. Somehow it evolved. Somehow this jockey nerd who loved Prince and not Zappa ended up making very bizarre, genre-bending, crude humor songs. But weirder things have happened. Yeah. But yeah, they put out a bunch of demos in the 80s till then eventually put out their first album in 1990. Put out the second one, The Pod, which had videos on MTV, most notably the video Pork Roll, Egg and Cheese, which is probably one of their more tame, less out there songs, because it sounds like it's essentially a song about asking your mom for a pork roll, egg, and cheese, the popular breakfast of New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. It's really called a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese. Let's just get that straight first.
Well, all right. So the thing about pork rolls and or Taylor ham, egg, and cheese, it depends on which section of New Jersey you're from. Now, honestly, everywhere else, you're probably just going to know it as Canadian bacon, or someone might just call it ham. But a pork roll or a Taylor ham and egg and cheese holds a special place in the hearts of people in New Jersey. Now, I'm not from New Jersey, but I've had a couple. They're pretty good. Most of the time, that's like a pretty go-to thing that you'll see people ordering at a bagel shop. Rob, you might be able to speak a little bit more about this. Also, why does it, what's with the hate for one or the other? What's with the pork roll Taylor?
Well, so. New Jersey is often divided into two areas, North Jersey and South Jersey. So South Jersey is anywhere, and there's some people say there's Central Jersey, but Central Jersey is a lie that is spread by people from South Jersey because they don't want to be part of New Brunswick. But so in my head, the dividing line is the Raritan River, which is where you first go over. If you're going down the Parkway, you go over the Raritan River, and that's where you get to start getting to down the shore almost. That's the first shore points there, Sandy Hook and stuff like that. So now there's a big difference in everything from North Jersey and South Jersey, because North Jersey is influenced more by New York City and South Jersey is influenced more by Philadelphia. So there's a big rivalry, sports teams wise. Most people from South Jersey like the Eagles, and most people from North Jersey will like the Jets or the Giants. And so pork roll is one of those things, because in North Jersey, Taylor brand pork roll, which is called Taylor ham, was for many years the most popular brand of pork roll that was available in the New York City metropolitan area, basically. So in North Jersey it became Taylor ham, but I guess down south in Philadelphia, where they had some other brand, it was just known as pork roll, and that's kind of where the influence came from. So, but the thing is, and this is why it's really called Taylor ham, is because the guy who invented Taylor ham, Taylor ham, he invented pork roll. It was the guy Taylor, whatever, I don't know what his first name is. So and he called it Taylor ham. So that's it didn't get called pork roll till later. So that's why, people will tell you Taylor ham is the actual true name of it.
That's
and here in the Hudson Valley, where we have no idea of this origin and just think of it as food from Jersey, we have them around here, but depending on where you're going, it's going to be called one or the other in Hudson Valley, probably because of us not being in Jersey and not knowing the origin of the food name.
It's weird because it is literally a very strictly New Jersey thing. Because I know people that are from New York that are from right over the border, Orange County. So basically the Hudson Valley, that have never had pork roll or Taylor ham before coming to New Jersey. When they were growing up, they never heard of it at all ever. So they only knew about it later after coming to
No, I never did either. I only heard it the first time our buddy Greg Groom showed it to me or told me about it or whatever. Like, he brought it down, and he was eating it, and he was like, "Oh, I'm having a Taylor ham and egg or whatever," and I'm like, "Okay, that's nice," or "I'm having a pork roll or whatever."
Yeah, there are random diners in the Orange County where you can get pork roll or Taylor ham, but like I said, depending on where it is, the name's going to be flip flop.
Yeah,
but like, the first time that I had it, he just like, I was like, you mean just like you mean Canadian bacon? And he's like, no, it's not Canadian bacon. I'm like, looks like Canadian bacon to me. He's like, it's not Canadian bacon. So there's like this whole this whole like Curb Your Enthusiasm argument over whether or not it was a pork roll or a Taylor ham or it was Canadian bacon. And I was like neither of us were budging. It was like a reservoir thing over trying to pick the freaking colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ween seemed to be very fond of that sandwich because same album, there's another song where it asks for not only another pork roll, egg, and cheese, but also with gravy fries on the side. And they must have been really hungry when writing that album.
Oh, yeah.
Well, gravy fries, that's another New Jersey staple.
Or very stoned. They might have been very stoned when they listened to when they were writing.
more like...
Well, listen, if you're in New Jersey and you're stoned, like the thing that you do is you go to the diner and you get gravy or disco fries, which is gravy fries with mozzarella cheese on it.
I don't know what the hell that is. I've never had that before.
You never had disco fries?
No, I never had.
Oh man, disco fries are great. There actually used to be a diner that would serve them in my town. Sadly, they closed only a few weeks ago.
It's fries with gravy and cheese curds. So like it's usually like mozzarella.
I've had that. I've never. Yeah. Just never knew that. I've just never heard it called that before.
Well, yeah, that's what they call. So some, they call it like poutine in like French Canada.
Yeah,
Canadian.
Yeah.
But but it's not exactly the same because poutine they use just like regular cheese curds, and oftentimes gravy fries they use like mozzarella, like I said, mozzarella or like some kind of Italian cheese, provolone, or something like that.
All right. That sounds tremendous. I'm not even a fry person, but like every once in a while, a good fry.
Yeah, well, that's like the best places that do it. You have to go and they have to use steak fries because the steak fry absorbs got a nice big flat area for the cheese to stick to, and also it absorbs the oil really good because it's like really soft. So they get like nice and like not like mushy soft, but like soft for like because they're like coated in the gravy. Mm-hmm. So. Now I'm like freaking starving talking about freaking gravy fries.
You can all take Ween and their songs. Oh yeah, songs about food is a common theme. They love singing about food. Basically, their biggest recurring lyric themes are food, total absolute nonsense, and the boonish, which is
yes. Tell us about the boonish.
The boonish is weird. Is a head with Super Saiyan hair and a bizarre smile that the band will write songs about and claim they worship. It's also on all their merch, and including, like I said, the air freshener in my car, which smells like banana. So my car is now blessed by the boonish.
Well, that's a nice blessing.
Yeah.
And the boonish is it's a demon god, right?
Yeah, the boonish is whatever they decided, whatever you would want it to be.
Oh.
It's even in some of their music videos.
Like, do they have like a lore for it, or is it just like they just made it and they were like, okay, this is our thing?
According to the Wikipedia, Ween claimed that from their earliest days,
they sprouted from it.
Yes, they sprouted from the demon god Boonish.
Oh boy! So they've been bequeathed from its loins.
Yes.
Exactly.
So Ween has protruded from the Ween of the Boonish, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
Yes, the Boonish created Ween, who have an affinity for food, especially ones that are very popular in their area.
Was there a lady Boonish involved in this procreation, or was this just, or was the Boonish asexual? Like, how does this work? How does the Boonish...
I mean, they use the word sprouted, so I'm guessing sprouted would be like when a plant gives birth, so asexually.
Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. I'm learning a lot.
So maybe the Boonish is actually a demon god plant that looks like a cartoon character. Looks like a really poor drawing with Super Saiyan hair.
It kind of looks like the All That logo with Super Saiyan hair.
A little bit, yeah.
And it predates All That, so who knows? Maybe one of
they probably stole it.
Yeah, right.
Maybe they did.
I mean, it's the same channel that had SpongeBob, where they used Ocean Man in the movie, and they also had Ween write a song about tying shoes.
Yes. This is true. So you know what? Maybe this was Nickelodeon's way of saying we're sorry about like ripping off your mascot completely. And
well, apparently,
a bunch of money.
The creator of SpongeBob was actually a fan of Ween and listened to Mollusk, and the Mollusk apparently was a huge influence on Steven Hillenburg when he made SpongeBob.
Oh, no way.
The album. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Mollusk is a major influence on SpongeBob. It's also basically even though it says they don't really have like a greatest hit.
It is a great album.
The Mollusk is like, if you've heard one Ween album, it's that album. That's normally seen as their opus. That's the closest they've had to full on mainstream successful album was the Mollusk. But yeah, and the creator of SpongeBob, he is a fan of underground and weird music in general. Not only Ween, but the Cramps have appeared on the show. The band that the Cramps played was called the Bird Brains, which is obviously an obvious spoof on the Bad Brains.
Yeah.
They also had the Violent Femmies do a cover of the SpongeBob theme.
Huh. They had Pantera on for like the Extreme episode too.
Yeah, Death Rattle, and then the Goofy Goober song is a parody of "I Wanna Rock" by Twisted Sister.
Right. It's crazy. I actually was watching a documentary about Nickelodeon. It's called The Orange Years. I saw it on Hulu. It was pretty damn good.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it. I've looked into it. I didn't actually watch it, but I saw it was. I was interested. I did like. So, what is it about? Like the cartoons or like the live shows?
Oh, it's all of it. It's really good. It's like 2 hours. It's a really.
Do they get into any of like the scandalous shit?
That was before everything happened.
Oh, okay.
I think this happened, because Drake Bell is in it, and I think this is like a few years before things came out.
Well, I mean, like what happened? Oh, okay. Like, yeah, what happened with the creator of what was it, the Amanda Show or whatever? He was like a real scumbag, apparently.
Oh no, they don't.
Oh yeah, he was into. He had a thing for underage feet.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it was really, and they're like. There's like speculation the reason why like Amanda Bynes is all fucked up and Drake Bell's because they all got molested.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
And what's even creepier is if you look back at some of those Nick shows, watch certain scenes, you can see what seems to be him Tarantinoing some of his younger staff. Like,
Jesus.
There's a scene in iCarly where it closes up on her friend just brushing her foot.
Oh, yeah. Jesus, that's weird. Okay then. I did not know about that. I thought you were gonna talk about the Ren and Stimpy creator John Kay. They don't really mention him very much on that show, on that documentary. But he was a crazy guy too. But no, anyway, what I was getting to was when they were talking about all that, they were talking about how Coolio did the song and how they used to do like a walk-in studio tour, and you would go in and you would see them as they were being recorded, or as they were working on things, so that you could kind of get an idea of what it's like to be a cast member at Nickelodeon or to work at Nickelodeon Studios. And Keenan and Kel were talking about how they got Coolio to do the Keenan and Kel show theme, and how for how all that was great, and they got to, they're somebody asked them about Coolio, and they were like, oh well, actually we weren't allowed to go in the same room as him, and it was somebody else was and they just looked at each other and started laughing, and there was another guy who was Coolio liked to partake in activities that may or may not be legal. So kids go in the same room, and they just cut to a room where Coolio would be, and there's just smoke everywhere. And like,
I mean, is anybody surprised? Like,
no, of course not. And like, Coolio was just like, yeah, I don't remember that show. He's like, I remember it was fun, but like, I don't remember a lot of that. So it's just, I don't know. That's just my long-winded story of like, Coolio was a fan of the green stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
maybe his mind was wiped by the Boonish when he saw the fake logo.
Oh, maybe, but yeah, Ween, also probably other guys who are fans of the green stuff. They their first demos and albums are like mostly a little bit more like just about like just drugs and like food and like being lighthearted and just being like.
Oh yeah, and Gene was addicted to just about everything.
Very lighthearted stuff in nature, as far as the tone of the music, which is most of their stuff anyway. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me that like they were really into just like experimenting with us.
Yeah, Gene had I know Gene had a drug problem during Ween's. Well, semi last year, because they're back together, but
yeah, well,
they broke up.
They broke up in like 2015, right?
I believe 2013. I know he was one of the reasons why they originally broke up, and Dean was 2012, and then they got back together in 2015. But he was one of the reasons why they broke up, because they kind of didn't get along anymore, and Gene had drug issues, which is probably why he looks. Basically, his other main project is doing Billy Joel covers. And he dresses up like Billy Joel, and he looks like they look like they're the same age, even though Billy Joel's like 20 years older than he is.
I actually met Billy Joel once. He was a pretty nice guy, actually. I was in college, and it was like we had a journalism class where he would just send us to like random like events that were going on, or like the courts. Like, I actually didn't mind going to the courts and like just reporting about like whatever like crazy like domestic disturbance or whatever it was that was going on that day, and just like going to hearings. But one particular one, because it was a music guy. It was when Billy Joel's MSG residency was going to start. It was like when they were doing the press conference for it. So I went up into like the big like MSG like skybox area where like they do whatever after parties or like what have you things. I don't know. Maybe every now and then they like plot the end of the world for the next 5 years or something like that. I'm not really too sure. Good coffee though, but it was just like a cool event. Like Adam Graves and a few like of the New York former New York Ranger, and just a bunch of other like MSG like staple people were there. Just to kind of do like this whole, hey, here's our pillars of MSG and whatever. And he was a really nice guy. He's actually not very tall. He's maybe like an inch or two taller than me. So he's probably about your height, Rob. And he took the time to answer every single question from like every person that was there, which he didn't have to do. There were like 50 people reporting on things, and like, just very nice guy, seemed pretty grounded and pretty humble for the most part. Didn't really get an aura of an ego about him. Like, just seemed like a stand-up dude. I asked him like what's different about performing at the Garden than anything else, and he said that when you play at the Garden, the stage shakes from the energy and like of the crowd. Yeah, he said it's like really weird, and he's never experienced that anywhere else. But he was a nice guy. And then, of course, the idiot with the next question was like from Sirius XM, and she asked him if he was coming to Howard Stern's birthday party in Florida.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he gave her like a look like, this is you came here for this, and he was just like, yeah, I don't know, I didn't get an invitation. She's like, oh well, I guess you're invited then, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna go, Billy. I'm gonna get a cup of coffee, thank you, or bye. Then I don't know, maybe that person got fired. I hope they got fired. I don't wish that upon most people, but I feel somebody for asking something that's stupid and wasting the guy's time, you should probably get canned.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fucking journalism these days, though, unfortunately.
I mean, that was probably the question that they told her to ask him for some stupid reason, but
yeah,
like every once in a while you get that, like your boss will tell you to ask a certain something of someone, and it's usually the dumbest question on earth, and you're like, I don't want to ask that question, it sucks, and they're like, no, you have to make sure that you ask this, and it's like not good. Or sometimes it's bad stuff, like I was when I was interning at WWE. This was in 2013. This was like right when the Ultimate Warrior was like back in good graces for the brief time that he was. I guess like it was pretty much the last year that he was still alive.
Yeah, because he died like literally like days later after like he like was like being honored. Like
pretty much.
It was like literally days later. It wasn't even like a long time.
Yeah, well, anyway, this was the summer before when they were announcing, like, oh, he's, like, we're friends with him again, and we're gonna, like, do a new documentary that portrays him in a positive light instead of the one where we buried him completely, which is probably the real documentary anyway. Because that guy was...
It's probably... He was nuts, but it was probably a mix of both.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's the first big press conference or whatever, and this guy Alex Giannini is like sitting next to me, and he's a children's author now. He actually read some really cool books, but he got the task to go down and do the press conference in New York and talk to. It was like at the Hard Rock. Because the Hard Rock used to be WWF New York in the world, and so like they kind of have like a loan. They kind of have like an agreement with them where like they'll do their New York press conferences there. So they get down there and he's doing it, and like he gets an email specifically from Vince, and he's like, you have to ask him about Distrocity, and he's like, oh no. And if you don't know what Distrocity is a made-up city from the Ultimate Warrior's failed comic book run that bombed immediately. He had like a whole comic book series that he like...
Yeah, where he raped Santa Claus.
Yeah. And like he had basically like it was one of the things that was like in his like contract where he strong-armed Vince for money to like come back. He was like, you have to like back and put out my comic book or something. So like, because Vince McMahon is Vince McMahon, and we'll get to him in a moment. We'll get to that in a moment after we get through some Ween songs. But Vince McMahon, holding the grudge that he does for all those years, sends this poor guy Alex to his doom, basically, and he's like, because he knew it would set him off, so he's like, hey pal, why don't you ask him about Distrocity? And he's like, oh no. So he's like I got this email. He's like going around the office and he's like asking advice because he knows what's going to happen. He's like, I might get murdered for saying this. And he might be counting on this. But how do I go about saying this? He's like, because I don't want to look like I came up with this question because I clearly didn't. And like, I'd have to be a complete moron to come up with this question and seriously think it was a good idea to ask him this. It's like, how do I tell him without telling on him, Vince McMahon? And they're like, well, you can't say Vince told me, or you can't say this comes from Vince, or anything like that, but you also don't want to say, you also don't want to come off like you thought of it, because then he'll probably kick your ass. He's like, well, I might get my ass kicked anyway. And they're like, that's probably true. Maybe the best thing you can do is just say, I was told to ask you this, and just see what happens, because then at least he'll know it didn't come from you.
Yeah.
He won't be able to prove that this came from Vince. So I guess just do that, and if you're still alive when you come back, we'll see you. So he goes through the thing, he asks him the question, and he's like, I'm really sorry, but I have to ask you this. Tell us about what's going on in Distrocity. Or I was told to ask you about Distrocity or something like that. And he just loses it, and he's like, he grabs him by the collar, and he like pulls him down, pulls him down away from like any like photography or anything, because this is like a private like thing in like a dressing room. So he like grabs him by the shirt and he's like, "Listen, man, he's like, you should be taking shit from anybody, and anybody who tells you to do this, not to do this." So he's like getting in his face, and he's like, "Listen, man, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be kicking your ass." And I know he said it, but I can't prove it. But I know it was Vince, and he was just like, he's like, "Was it Vince?" And he's like, I can't say. And he's like, "Listen, man, you should stop eating shit from other people or whatever." And he like really kind of lost it for a moment, but like his daughter was there, so he like calmed down. Like he wasn't as bad as he could have been, but the guy came back. Like we saw him the next day. We didn't even see him that day, but we saw him the next day, and he's like, "God, Vince is such a fucking asshole." And
yeah,
well, what happened? He's like, "Dude, he's like, honestly, if that guy's daughter and wife wasn't there, I probably would have been killed." So,
yeah, that's pretty fucked.
Yeah, things happen. But first, Ween. Well, we'll talk about more Vince in a moment. I don't really like to discuss news on here, but we do like to talk about wrestling. So this might actually be pretty fun to have a discussion on. But let's kick it off with some Ween songs. Tony, what's some of your favorites? And we'll kick them off. Let me just share the screen with you fellas.
Well, how many would you want to choose?
I don't know, like 3 or 4. They're all pretty short.
All right. Well, one of my all-time favorite ones is from the Mollusk, of course, because like I said, it is their opus. I'd say "Mutilated Lips" is definitely my favorite track off the Mollusk. Want to give a little intro to the Mollusk, because I'd say let's avoid Ocean Man, let's avoid Pushing Little Daisies, and let's avoid the 3 people who remember the Homo Rainbow from South Park.
All right. What was that?
Yeah.
Again? Let me cue it up for you.
The track is "Mutilated Lips" from the Mollusk.
All right. And what's the next one?
For the next one, I'd say let's go back to their first album with the track "You Fucked Up." It basically gives you a good glimpse at their more punk rock, edgy sound that was which was more common in the early days, but it still popped up on later albums, including on White Pepper. They even had some songs like that on White Pepper, which is Ween's most accessible album. It was the one where they tried writing actual like music that could be seen as radio friendly, kind of had a Beatles feel to it, even with the name. The name even intended that with White Pepper, but it still had its like Ween humor, and it still had some random punk rock sounding tracks. But like I said, "You Fucked Up" is a good way to like be introduced to the first album, the early stuff. Right. And since we talked about food so much, pork roll, egg, and cheese.
Yes, let's do a pork roll song for sure.
All right. Well, pork roll, egg, and cheese. Actually, no. Let's skip that one. Frank. Really? Let's do Frank. That sings about pork roll, eggs, and cheese, and gravy fries.
Ooh, all right. All right, that sounds good.
It's from the same album, so that craving was...
Oh, there's cravings all over this one.
And since I mentioned White Pepper... accessible sounding album from 2000, let's use the track, even if you don't, to hear Ween doing a more accessible style. And the music video by this track was actually directed by Matt Stone and Trey Parker, which shows like they had a mutual, that Steven Hillenberg was the only cartoonist that had a mutual friendship with, because they showed up for the Chef 8 episode, and then they met and Trey directed one of their videos. Also, if you look at songs like "I Love You" and "Push the Little Daisies," I think they might have influenced Cartman's voice.
Okay. So what was that last one?
The last one is called "Even If You Don't" from White Pepper. Their most accessible sounding album, where they had like a definite Beatles influence. Even the name kind of gives that away.
All right, cool. All right, so we will have those 4 queued up, and let's take it away. By the way, if you're listening to us on Spreaker or Spotify or any of the places where you're normally getting your podcasts, you will not be able to listen to the music. It's because of Spreaker's monetization policy. They don't. They'd rather us not have music on our show that doesn't belong to us, just to avoid any kind of like copyright mess or anything like that. You will be able to hear all of the music and our reactions and everything on YouTube if you want to do that when we do have the episode up on YouTube, and we will probably break up the clips as well so that you can get that particular clip of just us rocking out to Ween songs. Otherwise, it's not going to be on the Spreaker stuff, so we'll go, or any of the other regular podcasting platforms, so it will go right to whatever we end up talking about next. But for those of you who are listening on YouTube, here's your little treat here. It's just us talking about Ween. Let me know if you guys can hear this stuff. We're going to start off with Mutilated Lips. And enjoy, everybody. All right, but back to Ween, everybody. Back to Ween. So, like, how, so they broke up, and they got back together in 2015. So, like, what happened there? Like, how did they get back together? And then I just kind of want to end it off with, like, returning to the Vince McMahon speak.
Yeah.
But
all right, so
together.
They don't really get how they. I'm guessing what brought them back together was the fact that they realized that, like, I mean, Dean has a lot of projects, and his focus might be more on them, because even though they've gotten back together, it's been quite a while since they've actually written new music. But Dean will have his side projects. Will write music of his side projects all the time, and I guess maybe Gene really loves role playing as Billy Joel. But I'm guessing what brought them back together is just knowing that, like, you know, this is a band they're known for. This is a band that got them noticed, and that they have a very rabid cult following. Like I said, though it was mine and my friend Doug's first Ween concert, it was many people who was there, like 90th Ween concert, including seeing them the 2 dates they played before at that same venue, the days before. I mean, granted, we did look at the set lists, and we did see that, like, there are no overlapping songs in those 3 days. Because, like I said, it looks like Ween has so much material, and to a Ween fan, any song is a hit pretty much. That they'll play whatever, and they'll not overlap songs, have completely different set lists. And it's not like they played like some short 45 set lists where, okay, no overlap makes sense. They were the only band that night. It was one of those evening whiff shows. They played probably about like 90 minutes.
Jesus.
Which that's a lot of songs.
They have, minutes. To fill 3 90-minute sets with completely different songs, that's like almost impossible for a band to do.
That's
so
amazing.
The fact that we can actually do that is like just really a testament to, you know, how unique they are, and how crazy their fans are.
Yeah, and how, like I said, they have so much material. Plus, to them, a song's a song. They're willing to draw from stuff as obscure as, like I say, the track I keep bringing up, "Sucking the Blood Out the Devil's Dick," which is a demo song that they released on some internet-only compilation called Creators from the Stack, or how they played their song from South Park, which isn't even a recorded song.
Yeah, they have 9 studio albums. They've got a few live albums. They've been on like 8 different labels, by the way.
Including the big ones like Elektra. Yeah, like Elektra is what they put out White Pepper on, which, like I said, was their biggest attempt at mainstream. Yeah. I'm guessing like the Mollusk made them almost. The Mollusk started catapulting them there, and I guess it showed they had potential to get a lot bigger than this just underground cult band. And White Pepper was them like trying to go more forward in that direction.
Yeah.
So it seems like, I mean, it is still a fan favorite album, and it was number 2 on the Heat Seekers chart, I see. So it did have like moderate success, but kind of crazy how like it's not as iconic as some of their crazier albums.
Yeah, I mean, with like all their demos and everything that I'm seeing, like all album and like just material related stuff, they've got at least 30 different releases that have like several songs on them. So I mean, you can only imagine how like it's and the fact.
Oh yeah, and they have a lot of songs per album too. Though their songs are short, but they'll fill up the album length. Like for example, their second album, The Pod, runs at 76 minutes.
Jesus. Yeah, well, the Mollusk has like 14 albums. I mean, it has like 14 songs already, and that's just at 43 minutes, which is already a ton. And like, what does the debut one have over here? I mean, also, it's like Gene and Ween have been the only two like constants, and like everyone else has kind of been like session people that they've had to play everything else or tour with them. It seems like for the most part. Yeah, like the first album is God, Ween, Satan, the Oneness. That's got about that's an hour. That's about 70 minutes, almost 71. That's got 29 songs on it. I mean, they're all pretty damn.
Yeah,
they're all like clock.
Which is crazy considering how unique. Yeah, wow. It's crazy how they can write this many songs per album and have them all be unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, they also have like 2 songs that are like almost 10 minutes on here, but everything else is about a minute to like 2.5. And I think the third longest song, it looks like it's only about like 4.5 minutes, which is Blackjack, and Marble Tulip Juicy Tree. But there's just, it's crazy how many, like just how much they can fit in an album. And
so, I was going to say another interesting thing too is that for their first 10 years, according to Wikipedia, it was just Dean and Gene Ween, and that was it. And they played with a digital audio tape backing. So
that's kind of like what we did.
Exactly. I was going to say, we did that for a long time when we couldn't find a drummer. We just played to a drum track.
Yeah.
Piped through the PA system. And that's basically what they did as well for their first 10 years.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, it just goes to show you that, like, if you got an idea, like, by hook or crook, if you really believe in it, you're just going to do it.
Yeah.
You're just going to figure it out later, but you're just going to pursue the thing. But yeah, they're just so damn...
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how for the most part, most of their catalog is under the radar, with the exception of, like you said, the Mollusk being like the people's usual first album by them, White Pepper being at the time close to mainstream, and Push the Little Daisies, their third album, Guava, being having the song Push the Little Daisies, which was on Beavis and Butthead. Though anyone who might have, which that song is radio friendly by the standards of what they were back then, which is still not radio friendly, but it's definitely a lot more. It's more accessible than a lot of other stuff they had back then, but that's still a bar there. Like, I'm pretty sure if someone like saw Beavis and Butthead, maybe thought it was fine. They listened to the other stuff on that album, was like, what the hell is going on here?
Huh. They were on a Schoolhouse Rock compilation of all things.
What? Are you serious?
And X-Files, the album. How many bands can say that?
Oh.
I didn't know X-Files had an album. Yeah, 1998 soundtrack album released to accompany the film The X-Files. Ah, was that? I thought it was like these are the songs that we used on the TV show. And they were on Crank Yankers.
Huh.
Okay. Did not know that. Cool. Good for them.
Yeah, it seems like this is a topic. This band is a why does this exist topic that leads to other why does this exist topics.
Yeah. They're a gateway. Why does this exist? Ugh. Oh man, do we have anything else to add to Ween, or can we start, or we finished with Ween and we can just like move on to like just this one particular bit of breaking wrestling news and things that we that I just want to end the show on.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we can before we end the show, let's just talk about Vince for a second.
Yeah, it's all about Vince. Let's talk about Vince. That sounds like a sitcom. Let's talk about Vince.
Let's talk about Vince.
It's just
starring Tony Danza as Vince McMahon.
Oh my God! Thank you, Tony, for coming on the show and talking about Ween and sharing your experience and really guiding us through the magical mystery of Ween. You are a gentleman.
You're welcome.
Of course, man. Well,
always good to spread the knowledge of the Boonish.
Yes. Worship the Boonish, everyone. And this has been. Thank you again for joining us and sitting through all of our nonsense and banter. We hope that you had a good time, and we hope you had a lot of fun. Feel free to let us know in the comments section of the YouTube channel, which you are going to subscribe to. Why does this exist with a question mark at the end? Feel free to decide to give us some money from on our Patreon, because you definitely would like to do that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving financial advice or anything, but in my honest opinion, I think it would be a nice gesture. You could just send $1 or $2 our way, and please leave a review on Spotify or iTunes or Amazon or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It helps us, the little guys, the underdogs, just kind of jump out. And maybe one day we'll be able to get enough money to really upgrade the show, put some videos on here, get some nice cameras, and get some professional quality equipment, so that we could be just as good as your favorite podcast host. Unless it's us, then we'll just keep doing the same thing because we're your favorite. But this has been another episode of Why Does This Exist? I've been Chris.
I've been Rob.
I've been Tony.
And remember, question everything.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.